Warm welcome at the main event of the Dutch Blockchain Week. Really excited to see you all here today. When I prepared this session, I was thinking about 2015, the year when I bought my first Bitcoin, sold them unfortunately as well. But it was the year where the bigger financial institutions like Citibank, Morgan Stanley, and our own Dutch proud ING mentioned that blockchain was something that the industry had to live with. You know, it was no longer a choice anymore. And it's cool to see if we fast forward to this year and we see this meteoric rise of NFTs, DAO, DeFi, the ecosystem expanded incredibly. And it's not just this magical internet money for nerds anymore, but it has a profound impact from El Salvador to the Central African Republic and the Philippines. With FTX, Celsius, Terra Luna, of course, the ecosystem got quite some bad press lately. And of course have kicked cryptos also in a severe bear market. For this, we actually have these green balls, these green bear market balls. So you can pick them up. If you have some cryptos, you can probably use one. But yeah, bear markets, in my perspective, bear markets are for building. And as Blockchain Netherlands Foundation, we saw in the last months, we saw countless new startups being born. We saw corporates and governments announcing all these cool new implementations and many more exciting developments in this ecosystem here in the Netherlands. The Dutch Blockchain Week is the showcase for the Dutch blockchain and crypto ecosystem. We're showcasing all the exciting things happening and of course discuss also what is next. We'll do this in the upcoming 3 sessions with dialogues with startups, scale-ups, governments, ecosystems, institutes, and a lot more. And at the end, we will also hand out the Dutch Blockchain Awards. The Dutch Blockchain Week is organized by the Blockchain Netherlands Foundation, which is the oldest blockchain and crypto ecosystem in the Netherlands. And when I joined a few years back, it only had 20 active members. Nowadays, we have 90 active members, expanded our global reach and activities, but we also signed some very cool new partnerships. Amongst which also I'm very proud of the partnership with EY. Today we are a guest at the really cool place, the Wavespace studio here in Amsterdam from EY. And EY is making this event, but also the event tomorrow, the virtual event happening here. And we're really thankful for their partnership with the Blockchain Netherlands Foundation, because they not only make both events happen, they also make the entire Dutch Blockchain Week happen, and also our foundation as such. My name is Schaik. I'm a co-organizer and host of this event, also a board member of the Blockchain Netherlands Foundation and editor at No News. And I'm organizing this event together with a group of volunteers, Rudolf van E and a couple other great volunteers behind the screens, making sure that this event will happen smoothly together with the tech staff, Jeroen and colleagues from EY. Now, we will have conversations with all kinds of thought leaders from the scene. And it are not just conversations with me as a host and the speakers here on stage, but also with you. So we would also like to invite you to join this discussion. You can actually scan the QR code. I'm going to stand here. And you can join the discussion. So you can type in your questions. And the questions will end up here in front of my screen, real time. So I can also, if time is permitting me, I can ask them also here to the speakers. Now this session will dive deep into NFTs, Metaverse and DAO. And for the first conversation, I would like to invite the 3 thought leaders from the Dutch Metaverse ecosystem. Aragon from Your Open Metaverse, Martijn from Metaseum, and Liao from Replica to the stage. Guys, please. Now my first question will be, I mean, it's quite traditional, right? I mean, we're just sitting here in this old-fashioned studio instead of a fancy Metaverse environment. What happened? Why didn't we organize a Metaverse event with you guys?
I know. Did you reach out to us about it?
So maybe you can give a short introduction. What are you doing? Can I start with you, everyone?
Of course. So, Your Open Metaverse, actually formerly Your Open Metaverse, now Jon, startup company operating from Utrecht, and we're building what I would call, in terms, YouTube for the Metaverse. Web 2 is 2-dimensional, and YouTube is a great platform to consume 2-dimensional content. But as we're moving into a 3-dimensional world, as clearly defined by Matthew Wall, but also even people like Mark Zuckerberg. We need a platform to create something that's open, decentralized, and that gives the same kind of experience, but like a YouTube does. So that's what we built. I've been CMO at your Open Metaverse for the last year, and yeah, now I actually have another company which I use to advise companies like Jon and other companies on the potential of the metaverse across all technological foundations. So that's AR, VR, blockchain, AI, and all of that.
Already the first companies got in touch with you in the Netherlands that are interested in building their own space in the metaverse, or?
Well, not just the Netherlands. This is pretty crazy. Right now, I'm advising the Olympic Games on building a sportsverse for 2027. But I'm also working, for example, with a very traditional Dutch company called Hendrix Genetics, who are responsible for the genetics behind most of the chickens in the world. So basically, every second egg you eat comes from a Hendrix chicken, and they're looking at how they can, innovate and start using the technologies that are foundational to the metaverse to improve efficiency, their infrastructures, customer experience, and all that. So there's loads of interest also from a lot of industries that are not traditional. Or wouldn't be necessarily thought of as first adopters of metaverse technology.
Interesting. I know there's a use case in the south from like a chicken chain, where blockchain, but chickens in the metaverse. That's new. Wonderful. Many thanks, Mao.
Well, first, thank you, Jan, for inviting me over for this wonderful event. My name is Mao. I'm the founder and CEO of Replica. Replica is a company who's focused on the most highly realistic avatars on the metaverse. Because what we find right now is that a lot of avatars these days are very simplistic, I would say. And if you look at what Meta is offering, we're building something that's next level, next gen. And also the question is, who do you want to be in the metaverse? Do you want to be yourself, or do you want to be a fantasy version of yourself? That is the question that keeps me awake every day. And we have a wonderful team in Rotterdam, and we're making a very good announcement. So, stay in touch.
I think the project where I got in touch with you, Dutch police, where you literally made a child made, well, whatever, like the child was so realistic, right? Maybe you can shortly tell about this project?
Sure. There was a project in 2013 where we approached by police to create a chatbot. Chatbot is an official person that being used to attract people who are actually doing shady stuff. Basically, they use them to, and they find out a lot of these bad people online. And this project is called Sweetie, and it's been very famous. You can check it out in Darknet documentary in Netflix. I don't know more about it, but I'll keep it short with it.
Fine.
Hello everyone. So I'm Martijn. I come from an agency in Web3 actually called Broken Egg, and we started working for museums, and we actually noticed that there is a lack, or there's a, let me sit maybe like this. There's a lack of a metaverse for museums. Basically, museums, they're looking for a very high quality, detailed metaverse. And so in January we founded Metaseum. And yeah, nowadays we are building the metaverse of culture. So you could imagine a big metaverse combining all the galleries, monuments, and museums all together in one place. Having it a little bit more interactive, because there's a lot of metaverse out there that don't really offer this interactivity. And we just want to educate the people about cultural knowledge. And we want the younger generation to push them to go back to the museums, because there's a decrease in visitors, and this is mostly due to the lack of innovation and digitalization. So yeah, we want to inspire the kids of tomorrow to go to the museums again, and yeah, basically offer the fun side of it to then trigger their curiosity to go to the physical place. Yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting to hear, right? So we have use cases from corporates, from governments, from cultural institutions. Is better. Yeah. So it's really good to hear all these, like use cases from all variety of organizations. But one thing that I also hear quite often by organizations are not ready yet for the metaverse is they just don't know what it is. They don't know what is like a clear definition for the metaverse. Aragon, can you please?
On the spot.
Right there. That's like asking for a unicorn, I think. Well, me personally, I very strongly adhere to Matthew Ball's definition, which I'm still trying to learn by heart because it's so complete in the sense of that it really tries to look at all the technologies that underpin the metaverse as it will take shape in the future, except for, and this is an interesting one for all of you, because it doesn't mention blockchain or Web3 or any of that, no decentralization, which I think is the big missing part of it next to artificial intelligence. So I would take Matthew Ball's definition, add blockchain as a necessity, or Web3 at least, and then AI. But if you ask my personal definition, I try to break it down to make it easy, because the problem is that people don't understand what the metaverse is, so you need to make it real simple. And for me, it's about a revolution of interaction and transaction, because the metaverse technologies basically allow us to have new meaningful ways of interacting with each other and with physical reality through the meta layer that is the metaverse.
And
can I add to that, like the concept itself? I see that there's only one metaverse. It's like saying there's one internet, and basically all the different metaverses out there are more like different meta spaces, meta environments.
I love you. Thank you so much for saying that.
And it's almost like different websites. So as we know different websites nowadays, it's going to be a little bit similar like that, but there's only one metaverse, right? There's only one internet. We don't have multiple internets. So it's a little bit similar, that each metaverse is like a different domain name, almost like that.
But does like the metaverse, as most people think of, does it already exist?
No? I would say no.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, what do you think?
Not the way, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen Ready Player One, the movie, and that's showing more the visual side of the metaverse, and we're not nowhere near there. But of course, I also there's an infrastructure layer that Aragon just touched on. I think that's the Web3 layer that we're talking about decentralization, governance of your own data. That's something that pretty much that we are also focused on, creating the digital identity for tomorrow. But in order for people to trust you as a new person, we need to create we should try not to create this, I call it black mirror of dystopian world of tomorrow. We should try the white mirror, which is promoting good use of technology, and that's basically what we are trying to do as well.
Yeah, and I think the metaverse, when it will be done, it will be a place that's more interactive. So right now you can walk around in spaces, you can talk to people, but I cannot take a glass, for example, and everyone sees me moving an object in that space. So in that sense, I think the metaverse will be completely done when that will be achieved. But that's a very expensive and difficult technology to build, basically. Yeah.
I think for just one thing to add is basically try to, so if you talk about internet, the building stone from internet is HTML, right? But we haven't even agreed on the language, how we should build this next metaverse. So how can we say there's a metaverse, but we haven't invented the instrument to do it?
Yeah.
There's like now an industry standard board being erected, so there's some developments there, but there's no clear definition there yet, so I agree with that.
Well, yeah, well, the challenge with that is, I mean, Jon is a member of the Metaverse Open Standards Forum. The problem there is that there's over 3,000 companies that are part of that now, which all want to have, you know, a say, all have an opinion. And as much as I would like to think that it's all just, you know, really everybody wants the best to create something together, the truth is that I would say a lot of, especially big tech companies, also simply join because they need to be there to see what their opponents are doing, right? So it's also a political game where companies are trying to keep an eye on each other, figuring out what's the other player doing in the market. I think that we're in a very, in this sense, very dangerous place. I'm very hopeful for the metaverse. I think it will completely revolutionize our lives and has the potential to really improve a lot of, or to some extent solve problems that we have today. But the danger here is that when we had the .com bubble and the app, mobile internet and app bubble, or bubble explosion, most tech companies didn't really know yet how far the impact of it would go and how it would alter our lives. And although, you know, as humanity, we don't really have a good memory, we suffer from a certain sense of amnesia if it's more than 2 generations. At the same time, a lot of these tech companies, they have a really good understanding of what's coming now and its potential. And Tim Sweeney said it very eloquently. He said, the company that controls the metaverse will be the most powerful company in the history of mankind, almost godlike, and I think that is true.
Yeah, if it's centralized, and I think there's a lot of blockchain people here, like, why is it not becoming decentralized, right? I mean, we see the internet, we see the gaming sector, of course, hugely centralized. A couple big players that are dominating. What about the metaverse? I mean, I can see there's now cool developments, there's all the Web3 technologies that are enabling the metaverse to become decentralized, but will it be? Because in the end, you know, the big companies have the big pots of money for the development, and what's your opinion about that?
Well, I think it's quite difficult actually to be 100% fully decentralized. First of all, because you need a company who's responsible for that. Like, we are in a society where you need to register, someone needs to be accountable. And the problem with decentralized is, like, who is accountable? So in that sense, it's very difficult to be 100% decentralized. But you could think about having more involvement of the community and listening to their votes, listening to their voice, what they have to say, and let the project steer with that. And I think the implementation of tokens, for example, that can allow, or building a DAO, for example, with those tokens, could allow the most decentralized point of it. But at some point, you know, it's still a company. Who owns the trademark? Is it the DAO? Like there's so many things that are, and that's very difficult to decentralize that.
Well, I think that this is a very interesting conversation because we're touching on something now, a foundational concept, accountability. And we all think that this is a standard, you know, and that somebody needs to be accountable because this is the way we've always done things. But when I look at the potential of blockchain, when I look at the potential of the metaverse, it is to really break a lot of the basic concepts that we consider as fundamental to our society today. And one of those is how accountability works. Do we need to have a person that is accountable? Do we need to have a human a human accountable? Or can we have accountability? And can we achieve that through these new technologies?
I mean, I would definitely agree on that. I think it might happen, I don't know, it's like a wild guess, in 100 years, that there would be a country governed not by a president, but by the people. So in that sense, I think it will go there. The problem is the people that have and the last word to say right now about the politics, those want to keep their job and want to keep their spot. So of course they're not just going to give it up and let it replaced by decentralized concept. So I guess it will take some time, but I definitely see it going there. I mean, the whole younger generation is going towards this community aspect.
Yeah. And one other thing I'd like to add, and I saw Bert Slachter in the group, so he's going to like what I have to say. But right now, decentralization is a term that everybody throws around, and they pretend like, you know, anything with blockchain is decentralized. This is absolute fallacy. This is not true. The only real decentralized blockchain in the world right now is Bitcoin. You know, I hate to say it because at John we're building on Solana and we're talking about decentralized metaverse. I believe that we might get there one day, but the truth is that of the, I think it was on the CryptoCast this week, there's 21,000 cryptos in the world or something like that.
Yeah, something
There's
like
only
that,
one that's decentralized right now. So this is something to really think about very carefully.
One thing to add on top of it, do we realize that everything is stored on AWS these days? Everything's on the cloud. So we can say about be decentralized completely, but what happens if Amazon's down or Google's down? We actually rely heavily on those infrastructure. So yes, we can live in this utopian world, say, hey, we can be fully decentralized, but nothing's working without those big tech companies. So to be fully decentralized, technically, we can't. We're too reliant on them. And that will not happen in 1-2 years. Blockchain is not made for huge storage. Blockchain is made for small, smart contract. There's nowhere we can store our avatars, your metaverse data in blockchain, period.
Google down, Amazon down. I was thinking Solana down.
Yeah.
What happens with the metaverse?
Don't talk to me about Solana.
Sure. We're gonna look at questions from the audience, and it's a very interesting question because I was thinking about the heydays, the start of blockchain, and you saw a lot of corporates that you know, were thinking like, yo, blockchain, 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 and I had this solution looking for a problem. And that's maybe the question here also from the audience, is like, what problem does the metaverse solve?
Very good question. Actually, I believe that there's a trend happening in society, definitely happened because of COVID, is that we talk more with each other in terms of like we're more connected in some kind of sense. And I believe that community engagement is where we're moving towards, meaning that customers will no longer just be a customer of a company, but will become part of the community. And with this community side, basically, how are you going to solve all this, the social part of it, basically? So by text, you're missing some social part of it. And we built with Broken Egg, for example, we built an online office for web help, and with 12 chairs, you know, the whole board can sit there. The reason for that is to actually create more space. You can connect better with someone when you can picture yourself in that space instead of just seeing something flat. So it solves the social side, I guess.
There's actually something called mirror neurons, which was discovered at the University of Parma, I think, in 2008. But basically, it taught us that when we look at another human being, we experience what they experience if they make movements, if they change their facial expressions. And if you look at the internet today, Web 2 and social media, what we see is that toxicity rules. Why is that? That is because people do not consider each other as human beings, because 6 million years of evolution for us to actually acknowledge that the other person across from us is more or less the same as we are and we can understand them is completely lost in technological and digital communication today. This is one of the potential problems that the metaverse can solve. I would like to add, though, that I also think that the context of the question really matters, because if you ask the question, what problem does the metaverse solve, and you have the thought in the back of your mind, because we need it to solve a problem, otherwise it has no potential for life, then I think you're going about it the wrong way. Because if you'd ask people in the 90s, why do we need a mobile phone? They would tell you that they don't need one. If you asked them in 2014, why do we need 5G? They would tell you, I don't need it. And if you'd asked them in 1983, do I need a personal computer? They would have said, no, why would I? What would I do with this box in my house? Right? So what I find is that very often we don't actually know the real need for a new innovation until we have experienced it and developed it further. And I think that also matters.
I fully agree with you. And as we all experienced during the COVID pandemic, you know, people are starting to travel less. You know, the environment is getting better. Less traffic jams, you know, people are spending more time with the family. So there's a good side. And I'm not saying that COVID was good for us, but it's just showing that being fully digital, which is what happened. Everyone moved to Zoom, everyone start to use digital way of communication. It's actually changed a little bit our life a bit. And it is actually kind of like give you a glimpse of the future. If you're moving fully into digital and having a way, for example, one thing what we are keep me busy all the time is something called virtual fitting, which allow people to try out virtual clothing, like on e-commerce. Because 50% of all the things we purchase online, especially clothing, are being returned. Why? Because we don't know how it fits. And that is a massive problem, not only for the fashion company, but also all those goods that have been returned are actually being destroyed and end up in the landways. So going complete digital also makes sense, you know, because it allows you not only to have more accurate virtual try-on, but also help the planet become a little bit greener. So I think going digital only accelerate that a little bit, and maybe we don't need to own so much materials in this place, because the world is only getting bigger and bigger. We're not going to have less people in the world. So going digital is the only viable solution for me to save the planet. But that's my opinion.
Is it 15 or 50%?
50.
50?
Yeah, 50.
Holy moly, that's a lot.
It's pretty crazy.
All going to be burnt.
In some countries a bit more, in some countries a bit less, but it's...
Oh yeah, I see it with my sisters. They order all the stuff and it's
yeah, I don't know. Like,
and this is actually the second big problem that the metaverse will solve is I mean, are there any Star Trek fans in the room? Please raise your hand. No? If you have you ever considered why the Vulcans, the most technologically advanced race in the universe, has no roads, no significant cities, none of that, and it all looks like it's just one rocky planet? Well, it's because they virtualized everything.
So we've been discussing the problems that the Metaverse can solve, but the Metaverse now, of course, also is facing quite some problems. One of them is, in my perspective, the regulation, the lack of regulation, right? It's this pacing problem of governments that usually take 12, 15 years before they finally have a comprehensive set of regulations. Now the EU mentioned that they will start working on the regulation for the Metaverse. What should they definitely include?
Someone from Generation Z who can actually tell them what the world's going to be like in a few years would be a good start. But they don't take any young people serious, as we've heard again on the CryptoCast. I think in one of the recent week, because even at the Dutch Central Bank, they don't have anybody that actually comes from this industry, and that's because the standpoint is already decided on. I think this is the biggest obstacle when we look at these governmental organizations, whether it be the EU or the Netherlands itself, is that the people that are working on this on this policy and these what's the word for it, legislation, etc., they really don't understand what's going on, right? They're just sitting somewhere on a hill looking at it with binoculars from very far away, and they're saying, well, maybe this will work, or maybe we should this, or this is a danger.
So as we talked already earlier about all these communities, I think if they build regulation for communities, basically that's what they're doing, then they should include the community. So it would be nice maybe if they can create a big Discord with everyone and let people vote, let hear their voice, vote. Yeah. But it is very hard because I think there's people that don't take it too serious either, and that would not be good. But I think it would be nice to make maybe kind of a DAO for Mika.
Maybe if Christine Lagarde watches this, this is an open invitation to join our Discord.
So invite more younger people to this discussion. Speaking of younger people, what kind of jobs will be created for these younger people in the future when it comes to Metaverse? What kind of jobs do you foresee will be created? More younger people here that are also eager to contribute to these developments. What kind of jobs do you foresee?
Go ahead.
Okay, that's exactly what we're a bit focused on right now with our platform. We're thinking that the next generation, especially, just to give a bit maybe some fun story. I have kids these days. I have 2 girls, and they ask me not money to buy a jean in real world. They ask me money to buy a skin in Fortnite. So it's almost like that the kids tomorrow will be different from this generation. I'm not the target. You're not the target of my platform. And then the second thing I wanted to give away is that I think tomorrow is all about creators being authentic, creating your own goods. I think that's what drives the Web3 and everything. That's for me. That's why we need to create more tools to allow people to create their own content in an authentic way, and not just doing the old way. Yeah. That's why I think.
So I think you can also look at the evolution of the different webs, right? So you had Web 1 was you can read information on the internet. Web 2, you can read it, but you can also write something yourself, like social media. In Web 3, you can own it, certain data. But because there was this aspect that grew, I think creators saw this happening. They saw like, okay, I can own my things now. So I think the creators economy is growing very, very rapidly. So I think designers that want to design products could possibly think about creating their own brand. They could very easily create their own furniture brand in the Metaverse, which would be in the real world very hard to do because you need a manufacturer, you need to find, okay, the platform where you're going to sell it on. Although nowadays you could possibly just sell that online. So I think creators, 3D modelers, 3D architects, artists, all these people will have a big play in the whole Web3 evolution.
But do we need people for that, or can we also use DAO2, for example?
Well, yeah, that's a great one. Actually, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. You're probably focused on blockchains per song, but NVIDIA actually launched Magic 3D this week, which allows you to generate a 3-dimensional object from a word prompt.
Oh, wow.
So it's crazy. It's really crazy. So it's just a matter of time. Right now, you know, people finally, this is crazy. The Dutch government, Europe, they're finally saying, finally we're going to bring coding to schools, right? Our students will learn to code. They're too late. You can already go onto an AI bot online, like Bubbles or Glide, and you can just create something with no code, right? AI can help us with that. But to throw some numbers out there to answer your earlier question, the demand for Unreal Engine developers has grown on average 400% since 2016, a year. This is crazy. If you want a job, go and learn Unreal Engine, and you can do that for free online. There's plenty of places to learn it on YouTube, academies, etc. Right? The demand for ArcViz is gonna go through the roof, but also, Matthew Ball in his book says one of the big obstacles to the metaverse is that we need to create all this 3D content. And this shows that he wrote this book already, and it doesn't sound like a lot, a year and a half ago, but it's a massive, because if he'd known what's going on with AI today, he would know that, you know, that's not going to be an issue. But there will still be people necessary to give these AIs their input and their prompts, and this will be an art and a craft of itself. So I think that's where the real jobs will be and the potential. And interestingly, I think this offers a great opportunity for third world countries to leapfrog over the Western countries, even though it's a Dutch blockchain week, but because they have a drive to pick up on these new kinds of opportunities. And you don't need an internet connection all day to develop a 3D asset on your computer and upload it to a marketplace.
To add a little bit on top of this, not to scare you guys, but so, you know, in order to Google or any other company to make their own machine learning or deep learning algorithm, they need data, right? Data is the key. And currently what we're also doing is something to generate something called synthetic data. Because you just imagine you have a chicken and an egg. You need to create synthetic data to feed the machine. And that's actually something that no one heard about this, but that's what we're doing as well. Can you imagine if a new company wants to create something like a face unlock for your phone? How do you get this data, you know? How you can create a wide enough data that represent everyone in the society? Because you heard a lot about AI is really biased. They don't have enough people from different ethnicity, you know? And that's what we also try to do. We're actually generating data set for those people to be more ethical synthetic human data. That's something.
Now, we've been speaking about you know, creating jobs for the younger generation, but when I see the next question from the audience, I was thinking about my parents last weekend. I was trying to book a ticket with them. It was impossible. I booked it for them, and it's with they are like the elderly generation. That's a really cool question from the audience. Like, how are we going to prevent large parts of society, like the elderly illiterates, and these are like 2.5 million people only in the Netherlands already, becoming outcasted as a result of the metaverse?
Well, here's the awesome point that we find ourselves in time. This is the first time in human history that we have the technologies that can fix this problem. Because my mother is 78, and she calls me every time she needs to do something with her DigiD. In digit, or what do you call it? You know, the Dutch digital identity. Now, I'm not saying that this will happen overnight, but Qualcomm just launched their Snapdragon augmented reality glasses. They use waveguide, so basically look like any normal set of glasses, and they can project any kind of information in front of your eyes. It also has 3 cameras in there, and we know what artificial intelligence is capable of today, so give it a few more years. So what will happen? Well, my mother will have her mobile phone trying to log in with her DigiD. She will be wearing augmented reality glasses, and where she normally would say, I need to call Aragon because I don't know what the hell's going on. Now the AI, she will say, you know, what do I need to do? And the AI will tell her, well, this is your DigiD app, and you need to log in here, and your password is saved in Bitwarden, so you get it there, and then you can log in, and you need to go here. Because the whole idea of Web 3.0 is the semantic web. Right, where our AI helps us to understand understands the context, and then helps us to understand whatever it is that we need to do or need to go through. So I think that for the first time in history, the technology will offer us the possibility to bring those older generations with us by giving them kind of crutch to lean on to get along.
And I think for the elderly, I mean, how many older people are alone at home, just spending the same day over and over. I always look at it, my grandfather and my grandmother, for example, and I think that could be different in the metaverse. You know, they could put on a VR. I tried the VR on them. They are a bit dizzy in the beginning. It reminds them of a boat, but I think that takes used to, because I had the same in the beginning. I bought a VR and I tried it 10 minutes. I was like, oh, okay, this is not going to work. Then the longest that I spent in it was about 6 to 8 hours or something, so that was quite long. It was very strange, because even when I was touching the wall, I was like thinking, oh, this time I'm actually touching it, you know, because I got used to the VR that I don't touch the stuff, so that was quite funny. But yeah, so come back on the elderly, I think they would be able to go to museums again, you know, and they'll be able to hang out meet new people, people from around the whole world. I think that older people also still want to pick up a new hobby, for example. You know, maybe they want to learn to play guitar, learn to play piano. This is something, for them it's a big step, you know, finding someone that's going to help them. Are they going to go there? Are they going to come to their house? Do I trust someone? So there's a whole aspect that the metaverse could help them, because it's just an electronic device, so they're fairly enough trusted by now. So yeah, I think for the entertainment, that could be good.
And Mao can make them look young again.
Yeah, or older. You know. I have to add something on top of that, because I think technology should be seamless, should not be like a barrier to stop you from using it. And right now it's too technical, especially crypto and Web3. You know, I really like how Reddit implement their Web3 strategy. They don't tell you; they give you a wallet, and they give you, you know. That's how I think it should be. We should not say, hey, this is crypto. I think it should be as simple as that. And another anecdote I can share with you, similar with what you're saying about your grandparents. Yeah. My grandma used to suffer from dementia, and she forgot about things every day. And it's very tiring for a real person. Imagine a chatbot allow someone to have a long conversation with her, make her less lonely, you know. I know the technology is not there yet, but just imagine if we can make that possible, you know, how people feeling lonely during the COVID, how much it will help them to relieve. So, do a further interview. Metaverse.
We already do that, actually. Yeah. So we you know, spatial is quite simple. You don't need an email address. You don't need a wallet. You just need to write down a name. It can be anything. People sometimes write down hello, and then they have an avatar. You know, Ready Player Me avatar. And yeah, that's how we do interviews for new interns, for example. And if we see that they're struggling and they don't understand anything, then maybe it's not the perfect job to go work in the metaverse. So it filters out some people as well. Yeah.
And we're going to close down this conversation. Yeah, sorry, I think
could go for hours.
For hours, for sure. But we have some.
Oliver, cool. You want to go to Den Haag now?
No, we have some cool conversations coming up, and new events also in the upcoming year. But closing down, I'm leaving in the middle if the metaverse already exists or not. But when do you foresee like this mass adoption of metaverse? Because one of the things that could prohibit it is, of course, that a lot of people still think that you need to wear the 3D glasses, right? The VR glasses. I also read this policy paper by Nick Leck, head of policy from Meta, that he foresees now that most of the metaverse will be actually on the flat screens in the upcoming years. So closing down, what are your closing remarks when you think about mass adoption? When will it take place?
Well, mass adoption is only something we can really consider once we get to the point that we can actually talk of anything that's really a metaverse. And right now, what we have is a lot of very siloed experiences. I mean, don't get me wrong, but Decentraland and the Sandbox, no matter how amazing in some respect they are not really interoperable. I mean, you can't take anything from the Sandbox to Decentraland. So there you have it. It's not really metaverse yet. So having said that, I also need to take into account that as human beings, we have a tendency to overestimate what we can do in the short run and then underestimate what we can do in the long run. For me, that's 5 and 10 years respectively. And then finally,
I want to take into account the fact that we are looking at deflationary power from technology as we've never seen it before in the history of humankind, as outlined by Jeff Booth in his book, The Price of Tomorrow. So if I were to judge, I'd say that in 5 years from now, we'll probably have the first grassroots metaverse where we have interoperable worlds that will allow us to take IP from one place to another, our virtual assets from one place to another, and then it won't be mass adopted yet. It will still be early days, and hopefully everybody in this room will be using it, but it'll still be like 1% of the global population. And then in 10 years from now, it will exponentially have grown to, you know, maybe 10 or even, you know, as far as 30% of the population in the Western world, at least, that has access to these technologies. But this is, I mean, I have no glass ball, so I can't be sure.
No?
I think I don't have a crystal ball, but if I have one, I would predict that the future will be only twist. It will not be what we are thinking right now. I think just the reason why Apple haven't jumped into the whole, they don't believe in that. Same for me. I don't like the experience, so I don't see anyone adopting it. And I think just like the comparison with VHS and, you know, which become the final standard, is the path to the least resistance is the technology. The more technical you make, the less people want to use it. It should be seamless. And just maybe like Back to the Future, where they're predicting people will have flying cars and hoverboards. You see people using it? I don't see them. So I think the future will be quite boring, to be honest. And the coming 10 years, it will probably still stick to some screens on the phone. Maybe they will become lighter. But I think if I have a crystal ball, I say 100 years from now or 50 years, I think Elon Musk probably with Neuralink will have the best bet. Because we imagine that everything we need to see just will be imagined. We don't need to make it. It's just. Then, no, we basically plug ourselves back to the matrix.
Thanks. Martijn.
I think adoption comes with the bull markets. No, I think mine is better. I think it comes with the bull market. So we've seen that, you know, same as crypto, it gets more and more adopted. Why? When the price goes up. So it's the same with NFTs and the metaverse. So I believe that every 4 years, when the cryptocurrencies will go up, people are going to be interested about cryptocurrencies, and then they discover as well the whole NFT metaverse side. And so every bull run will have more and more people coming in. I cannot say when it will happen that everyone will be fully in it, but I think the fact that companies will start doing it at the jobs, you know, having VR spaces or like 3D spaces at their job to talk with their team, I think that will really push the adoption for the people to also do it at their home. And then I'd like to say one last quote for closing. It's a quote from Ready Player One. It's a very famous movie. And it says, people come to the oasis for all the things they can do, but they stay for all the things they can be.
Wow.
Very
beautiful closing. Gentlemen, many thanks. Many thanks for your contribution.